For my complex problem and interdisciplinary project final presentation, I choose to discuss fetal tissue research and its associated controversies over ethics and humane approaches to the fetus. The political overturns of former President Donald Trump and current President Joe Biden did not help this matter. A notice published on April 16, 2021 by the U.S. National Institutes of Health, known as NIH, says they are terminating the ban on studies by researchers inside NIH and reviewing the ethics that had wrecked the funding applications from external researchers. The stage of fetal tissue research is when the fetus has developed a heart, teeth and palate, eyes and ears, arms and legs, and a central nervous system. This is at or after the 9th week of pregnancy. The question of human life and when it begins seems to be the primary concern regarding abortion and the use of the fetus. Not only do we have moral beliefs to protect human lives, but we also battle with religious faith and how human life begins at conception and subsequently is a person with rights. Violation of laws and ethical standards has become more prevalent in hopes of stopping fetal tissue research and destabilizing the right to abortion. The current problem that continues to take place is whether fetal tissue research is considered ethical and not dehumanizing. This conflict has existed since the early 1970s when abortion became legal nationwide. Fetal research is done with living fetuses either inside the uterus, known as in utero, or outside the uterus, known as ex utero. Fetal tissue research involves cells from dead fetuses that are harvested to establish cell lines for the use as transplantation material and other scientific purposes. There are two sources of such fetal tissue: elective, which means induced abortions, and spontaneous, which are natural abortions. It is essential to understand that fetal tissue has led to the development of the polio vaccine, vaccines for measles, mumps, and rubella, chickenpox, whooping cough, tetanus, hepatitis A, and rabies were also created using fetal tissue cultures. Researchers continue to use fetal cells to develop vaccines against other diseases, including Ebola, HIV, and dengue fever. Without this research, millions of people would die. Unfortunately, fetal tissue research cannot exist when the fetus is a miscarriage. This tissue is considered non-viable because something caused the natural death and potentially could have a chromosomal abnormality. A major question still remains. When does the fetus become a person during gestation? When does the fetus have accompanied rights? Most states permit elective abortions to be done under 20 weeks of gestational age. This is a mutual agreement among states and disciplinarians, and tissue research does not play a part in the decision to have an abortion. Based on multiple research methods that I've reviewed, it seems like multiple disciplines can only come up with one solution, and that is to introduce a set of ethical guidelines and govern the use of human fetal tissue. In theory, this could work, but having funds associated with fetal tissue research remains to be unethical and seems to be the primary lens to the problem of being inhumane. There needs to be a mutual understanding that abortion and fetal tissue research is a very touchy subject that even most educated individuals struggle with finding resolution to. As a result, this topic is still scrutinized. Having reviewed several articles and studied the ethics and dehumanization of fetal tissue, I see how each discipline can consider the research as an advancement to save millions of lives rather than to take them. Only then will we find resolution to the complex issue of ethics and policies to ensure a humane approach to fetal tissue research. What we need to have is complete transparency. The mother who wants or needs the abortion must have a full psychiatric workup, education, and knowledge before making decisions. Lastly, know how the fetus will be used before signing a consent for fetal donation. Education can be done through videos, one-on-one physician and patient sessions, group sessions to increase awareness and insight into the process of abortion to fetal tissue research. Having laws, policies, plans, procedures, and a new way of explaining these things could help the mother and the researcher. In addition, we should have explicit guidelines on what is considered a viable gestational age for research, thus taking out dehumanization of a fetus. Is there a solution to fetal tissue research? Maybe. Having funding associated to fetal tissue research seems to be the problem. I would consider having no currency associated, thus taking out any scrutiny over persuasion of the fetal tissue wealth. Each state with the same policies would benefit from clear communication and directness of how the tissue should be used and preserved, thus protecting the fetus. But as it stands, the government continues to change laws and policies against human fetal tissue research. This is why it's a complex problem. The ethics and humanity against human fetal tissue research continues to be scrutinized.